Now, what I'd like to do is ask Hanna, to join me up on stage, and we're going to have a look at a really discussion around sort of AI and its implementation and how it can really be applied to marketplaces. But I thought a good way to kick this off, okay, if we could bring up the slides, thanks, is a couple of things that I was looking at the other day. Airbear? Fantastic. I think this is something that Adobe's just put out with Firefly. Okay, so pretty cool technology, right? And the whole fundamental issue is that it does really change what you see and whether you understand what's true or not. Now, I want to show you another clip, another bit of cool technology I was showing Joe just before. Okay, has anyone seen this clip about this bit of technology? Very interesting. So here's a camera that this guy in Denmark has invented. Okay, and watch what he does. He basically dials in what he's looking at. There is no lens on this, okay? And it basically uses the geographic coordinates and a bunch of requests he has to use AI to generate the picture for the outcome. So that's the street. Then he generated that picture from that. So what you're seeing is not real, or is it real? I haven't quite worked out yet if it's real or not real in that whole process. And what's interesting is it's all about saying, here's the guy, it's about saying he wants an afternoon photograph taken in this address. The weather is sunny, temperature, the date. Nearby there's a tank station and a hardware store. And it takes what's behind him and generates what's on the right-hand side. Here's another example of what he's done. It's an evening photograph in a popular street in Amsterdam. Clear day, 14 degrees. It's the King's Day, so they're all dressed in orange. Okay. Restaurants, bars, groceries. So he's taken that picture and generated that picture. Okay, it's very simple about what's happened is how he does it. You just have the time of day, location, weather, and you can just create a picture. But you don't even have to physically be there to do it.
It's cool.
You can actually go to his site at the moment and do it. And yeah, it's called photographica.dk. So he's Danish, the guy. Okay. So where I want to start at, Joe, this whole conversation, and we're going to start with sort of ethics and such. Because you look at these images, are you looking at something that's real? Or you're looking at something that's fake? Or you're looking at something that's in between?
Well, it's a really good point. I mean, I think particularly when it comes to image-based machine learning and AI, more often than not, it's the technology is used to remove certain items out of the image or enhance the image. So more often than not, typically looking at something that's real. But in the case of DALL-E, for instance, you're looking at something that's been totally made up. So if we talk about ethics, particularly in images, I think there's two things to consider. One is clearly images will be enhanced to, say property or fashion to present the marketplace product in the best light. But by doing so, we should be able to use the same AI to identify that an image has been enhanced. So typically there'll be little, cookie, like breadcrumbs, I suppose, if I look at it that way, within the code that shows that things have been removed. Moving to ethics in, say, conversational AI, I think that's a whole different topic altogether. So one of the things if you consider search, whilst it's still an efficient way of finding what you're looking for, and in search at least you have, as a human, the ability to make a considered decision over the results that you're seeing. In conversational AI, on the other hand, you're you're given an answer. Now, what we don't know is whether that answer is a sponsored ad or is somehow tuned to give you an answer that's beneficial for the company. So, for instance, what's the best mortgage on market at the moment could actually give you an answer for whoever they make the most money from. So at least now we know in search, things like Google, they're regulated. You can identify an ad versus sponsored ad versus real content. I mean, that regulation doesn't exist at the moment with conversational AI. It may come, but that raises a whole set of questions around ethics over what the data that's coming back is actually representing.
So if I'm running a marketplace today, I'm implementing AI as, for example, the Zillows of the world are, and implementing Chatgpt as part of the interface. How important is the brand and trust within the marketplace?
I mean, I think it's hugely important. I think that the reality is, well, there's two factors. One is the importance of the brand and the trust of the brand. The second is control over the output of the AI. And we've spoken, a couple of days ago about hallucinations and just crap output from API, which has the impact of damaging, the trust of the brand. So typically with these things, you can tune to a certain level, but you can't control. So once they get it right, I think the brand reputation and trust will be critical for how consumers use these products.
Okay, so therefore, if I'm a existing marketplace, investing in ensuring the quality of data that I've got, the accuracy, the quality of the leads, even the responsiveness of the advertiser becomes important in establishing or enhancing trust.
Definitely.
Right, in the brand. And if I'm a new entrant in the market, I've actually got to invest heavily in building that and positioning myself as the trusted partner.
Exactly, and I guess that's where training data becomes hugely important. And we spoke about this the other day over how do marketplaces continue to be relevant. Well, the asset that they have is years of data, domain-specific data that can be used to train these AI tools. So let's take an example. Let's take the automotive industry. If you're able to harness the full history of every car that's ever been listed on an automotive site, the valuations, the service logbooks and the service history, and you control that data set, train the AI tools that have already been created on the foundation of ChatGPT, as an example, or Bard, which ultimately, if we take a step back, if we think about that transition I suppose the shift, for me, it's similar to, I guess, going back 20 years ago. If you were building an e-commerce site, you would have to build it from scratch. The investment was there. Enter Shopify and BigCommerce and the like, and all of a sudden, anybody can start an e-commerce site overnight. Or in the old days, we had server rooms with physical servers. If you wanted to build something, you literally had to turn on a server and build it. Now you've got AWS, click a button, and you've got an instance. That same kind of building blocks is the foundation of what ChatGPT makes available. But in reality, in order for it to be useful and not general purpose tool, you need to load your own data in. And I think that's where, for marketplaces, the big opportunity is to come, where you can literally load all your data sets and tune how precise the output will be.
All right, so let's go down that rabbit hole. I'm sitting here thinking I'm a marketplace. We've talked about AI and how important it's going to change the way we think about stuff. But how do I truly make it happen? Because we throw those words out, like we used to throw the words out about data science and data lakes and all that sort of stuff. It sounds so easy, it sounds so simple, but it's actually quite complex.
It is complex, and I think that the things to consider is it is a fundamental shift of the way consumers, the users of our sites, interact with the site. So you need to be pretty confident to replace your search with a conversational AI piece. So I think typically the way that we'll see people start to do this is more in kind of controlled test environments and certain use cases, and slowly start to introduce. The reality is you've just got to get in and play with it and have a crack, basically, and try to see where the use cases are. I think the fundamental opportunity, though, is moving away from a user-driven search to a conversational prompt, where you're essentially asking the user to fine-tune their search results, fine-tune their requirements based on, back and forth conversation. That presents a unique opportunity for us to start to build a lot more data around individuals in a way that's been harder to do in the past with click search.
So you're talking about collecting of data.
Collecting of personalised data.
So the AI starts to, I go to a website, I take a travel site, for example, a good example of a marketplace, right? And instead of today going, I need to go from Miami to Madrid, which I was looking at the other day, okay? And I've got that date and the time, I now should be saying, find me the cheapest way, and I don't care if it's a dead leg at the end, and I'll jump off and I haven't got any luggage, and so I can then carve a different different solution set.
Absolutely, and over time you should be able to say, I need to get home, the regular flight around the regular time, have no luggage.
So in that conversation, it's now building a good profile of me. It builds a profile around the class I travel, the airlines I like, the dates and times. You know, I prefer to travel at night. Overnight's not a problem, or whatever, and so on.
Absolutely.
So it builds that profile of me.
Absolutely, and then if you're able to kind of ingest that with clickstream data, then you're able to enhance that profile of you. Well, we know if Simon says this, he'll take 4 clicks to get to where he needs to. So what he actually means is this, as an example.
All right, so what you're basically saying is it can jump the steps. Well, that's an interesting thing, right? Because if you look at the advertising models that a lot of these marketplaces are built on, isn't that a problem? Because if the AI is basically going from search to tell,
Yep.
if you think about it, right? There's search, match, discover, tell. That's how I sort of view it. And it's going, and it basically knows what I want. Doesn't that destroy models for marketplaces?
Well, it certainly puts pressure on the SaaS pay-per-listing model. In essence, what the sole purpose of these tools are to make the search experience or the discovery experience or the match experience far more efficient. In doing so, it means you're looking at less listings, products, whatever the case may be, and you're trying to get to that end result as quick as possible. That then gives rise to the transactional model and the performance-based model clearly, because you're no longer getting a paper listing, page impressions, lead generation for listings that perhaps the person didn't want to see but may have discovered in a way aspirationally or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Hebe, can we bring up Slido, please? Just so we've got it sitting in the background so you guys can join in the conversation. So let's follow that, right? So if we take any of the marketplace would take like a real estate type marketplace. They're making a fair chunk of change off positioning of ads. So you're basically putting something that I'm not really interested in at the top, charging me for that. No different to Google, by the way.
Yes.
Right, at the end of the day. But then AI sort of obliterates all that and just gives me what I actually really need, right? Not what they think I want, or to make some money. So if I was a marketplace, would I start to sort of become quite worried about my business model?
I think so, and I think one of the themes from the other day was that we overestimate the short-term impact of these technologies, but underestimate the long-term impact. That stayed with me. The reality is, given that it has the potential to disrupt incumbent business models, is the way that these things will be implemented will be slow and steady and over time. But if we just take an altruistic view of it, absolutely. I mean, if we jumped straight in head first and went full conversational AI, full personalization, clearly we're going to allow our users to get to what they want a lot quicker than they ever have in the past, which will absolutely put pressure on the non-performance-based business models.
Right, so in theory what's happened, you've gone from a newspaper-based advertising system which was highly inefficient to a more efficient but not totally efficient model which was sort of in Web 1.0, 2.0,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, whatever anyone wants to call it, right? Which is advertising-driven models, but it's positioning. The more you pay, the better off your position is going to be, which is fine if I'm buying, I don't know, some steak knives.
Yep.
But irrelevant if I'm looking for jobs, cars, homes, because I really need to get what's truly my search.
Correct, and I think that the opportunity set is for long-term decisions, a house, a car, a job. They're typically not made in a single search session. So the opportunity that AI in general, machine learning, or let's just say personalization tools in general have is the multiple sessions, the multiple searches over a period of time can be far more efficient. So the opportunity for marketplaces is to not get so worried with what the short term, well, we used to have 5 views per session, we only now have 2. If the leads are actually still high, if the properties are transacting, and you're starting, well, in the case of real estate, and you're starting to make performance-based transactional lead gen, then ultimately it should even out.
Right. So the fundamental change in the model has got to be from almost advertising and click-based models, because everything in theory drops right off, right?
Correct.
And it goes to being, the ultimate outcome is the marketplace knows who Joe is. The marketplace knows that he's going to buy this house, because you eventually buy a house, right? Okay, and there's this convoluted process to get to the end answer. And what happens is if you can just get to that answer in 2 minutes, in theory, or you're buying a car, or you're getting the dream job, then the only way the marketplace can make money is to truly capture a part of the end transaction value.
Absolutely. But the opportunity is with these chatbots or Chatgpt, conversational AI in general, is we can start to prompt the user off search. So let's take the instance of a car. If someone clicked on a lead generation for a car, went for a test drive, we could prompt them to ask, what did you think of this car? Do you have any feedback? So we can inject ourselves in the transaction stream without necessarily having to have direct relationships with our dealers, with our real estate agents, or the technologies that they use. So, obviously, I used to run a CRM business, and one of the things that we were very protective of was sending that data back to a marketplace, because we understood every step of the process once a person had clicked contact agent button, whether they went to an open for inspection, what they thought about the property, how many times they called the broker or the agent, how many times they opened up an email. That data becomes a lot more accessible to the outside world now, not necessarily only because of AI, but it becomes easier to digest and then influence those AI decisions. So imagine in Marketplace knowing that I contacted an agent, the agent contacted me within 2 minutes, and I made them an offer within a day. That's pretty cool data to have, but it was rejected. So I know what property preference the person has. I can start to now tune that data. So the next visit, rather than even ask a question, you'd show similar properties or other relevant listings.
So if I'm a marketplace, right, so we can paint the doom and gloom scenario, right, where if you're not in the transaction, you're not capturing value, like the Expedias of the world, as someone is talking about here, then you're out of the loop, right? Because you're now becoming less relevant, because I, as a consumer, just want to get to the answer. I may not want to go on the journey of discovery in that process.
Absolutely, and I think that the comment about Expedia is that you don't necessarily need to wait for a conversational AI to start to make these changes. And there are many things that marketplaces can do today to improve efficiency of discovery. Ultimately, I think machine learning, conversational AI will force it to the mainstream across many marketplaces, but I actually think it's a positive thing. I think the experience is going to be better. I think if we embrace it and find best ways to implement it and just have a go, I think the net outcome for consumers will be far better.
So if you're Rightmove, as an argument, right? You've got a nice cushy life, you're making a 70% EBITDA margin, the share price is sitting at, I don't know, whatever it is, probably £8 million or not £7 million, whatever it is. You've got this AI Juggernaut coming along, right? Which basically takes your model and, in theory, makes it, it highlights the inefficiency in your model.
Yep.
What do you do?
It's a good question, because it's such a profitable business that clearly, innovator's dilemma, right? Do you jump in head first? Do you wait for others to slowly disrupt before you react? I think a good example, it would Trulia in the US had a discovery section of their website, which wasn't very successful, but I loved it. And it was basically a recommendation engine based on your personalization. In one iteration, it was kind of a Tinder style. I like this, I don't like that. And it was a totally dedicated section that enabled you to have a personalized discovery experience that was not search-based. So perhaps that's one model to explore, is give users the option of saying, well, would you like to try our new personalised way of discovering properties, which is separate to search, and A/B test? I mean, if I was running Zillow, that's probably what I would do.
Okay, so let's answer some of these questions, right? With the change of consumer behaviour away from search, do you think Google will move closer to the transaction, starting from jobs, but also into real estate?
I think that's a very good question. They may have to. The reality is, we know, when we've spoken about this the other day through some of the other speakers, that that if we start to consume search through conversational AI, that puts some pressure on Google's traditional model. So if they can get direct to a listing, then they probably need to. The problem is we've seen Google try this time and time again, real estate jobs. It's starting to do some stuff in jobs, but it's never really worked to the extent that consumers would want. I think fundamentally, and I think Gonzalo would appreciate this because we had this conversation at Mature many years ago. To run a marketplace, you fundamentally need to have salespeople that sell to your consumers. Google is fundamentally an algorithmic-based tech company. So the execution is typically poor.
However, one could argue, and I think this relates to the question above, we're talking about AI search for marketplaces. Shouldn't we be enhancing metadata first? Let's broaden that, not just metadata, but the listings, the content itself. And we saw from the video up front here with both Adobe and the guy with the groovy camera is, there's no reason on the planet that any listing for a car, for any basically thing that goes up on a website shouldn't be absolutely top quality.
Absolutely.
Okay? So then you think about how applying AI to enhancing the listing. Okay? How do you think the advertisers should be embracing that, or should it be the marketplaces doing it on behalf of the advertiser?
It's a great question. So in our CRM, we implemented Chatgpt to allow content creation for listings for real estate. My view is whether it's the individual or the marketplace, I actually think the marketplace should do it. The ability to generate multiple iterations of content in real time and test which one converts better is now unlimited with Chatgpt, and you've experienced this with your own playing with it. So ultimately, I think there's a significant opportunity to have various versions of various content, and the reality is the way that I want to read a listing, property listing, may be different to the way that you want to read it. So why wouldn't my description of the property for me be different, but the same property at the same time be different for you? And that's certainly now become possible.
Right. So now this is interesting, right? So the role of the marketplace is changing from being an aggregation of supply and demand to now a curation of the supply.
Yep.
To make it far more consistent. So if you think about it, you go to Amazon, you have a pretty consistent experience between every single listing. eBay, not so consistent, not as a good experience. And it's almost like instead of going from multiple different marketplaces to one, but everything is in a very consistent, everything's in the same place. There's the same level of comparison between the products and so on. And what you're saying though is twofold. One is you can leverage the AI to get to that level of consistency. So I no longer have to, if I've got something in the garage I want to sell, and going and trying to get some lighting and some pictures, now I can just sort of take a picture of whatever it is and get it uploaded. The AI goes, I know what that is. Here's the standard picture.
Yeah.
I'll just look at what in your picture and the standard picture for that, and I'm going to take it and merge the two to get a picture that's properly much better presented, but representative of the fact that it's a used article rather than a new article. I will then get the text around it, and suddenly you've got a high quality listing. And then that's the first thing, right? And then the second thing is the AI at the interface level is going, well, Simon just reads bullet points, Joe likes to read long text. I'll take the same description, but present it in multiple different ways.
Yep, and I mean the gateway to making that possible now is reduced. It's a lot easier to do than it has been in the past. So when we talk about conversational AI, the fact that these tools are now generating natural language processing outputs means that I no longer have to build those models. I can rely on those models to utilize them to have that personalized.
Okay. What concerns do you have around the use of AI in fraud?
Well, I mean, there are quite a lot. I mean, the reality is, I don't know about everyone here, but I get spammed at least 100 times a day. Actually, even my staff get 3 or 4 emails a day from someone masquerading as me. And that's clearly programmatic, but it's not personalised. So there are little things that they can find, and, problems with grammar or other things that they know it's not me. Imagine those tools now being generated through Chatgpt, very personalised, at millions of variations of those frauds. So pure spam and the crap like that, I think it's just going to rise. But then there are clearly other instances that are far more concerning, generally speaking, not just in marketplaces where AI can absolutely enhance and accelerate fraud, no doubt.
So then the other side of that is around detection and moderating activity. Okay, how do you see, because that's where once again AI can help the marketplace. Right?
I think we'll see a lot more AI-driven security startups and enterprise-grade solutions that essentially leverage off AI to detect, warn, prevent these types of scams and fraud. But the reality is you kind of need to have the scams before you work out how to fix them. So we're in this kind of chicken and egg scenario.
Yeah, it seems to me that we're in this sort of race where we're going to have, this is my scary thought, because I'm going to plug myself back into the matrix at the rate I'm going. Right, I'm going to have listings that become auto-generated. I take one picture of I don't know, X, an old iPhone I want to sell or whatever. That the picture gets enhanced, the description gets auto-generated, it gets uploaded to a marketplace that then determines how I see that image differently from how you see the image or the text, and do the search, how it's presented to me, because it's all based on, the more it knows about you and your click-through rates, then the more it's going to tailor the presentation, because when you think about it, at the end of the day, it's about results. So that's all going to be AI-driven, right, in that whole process. Then on top of that, there's going to be someone, the AI is going to be monitoring me as an advertiser to make sure that that's a real iPhone, and I'm not ask, or the old thing of send us some money and we'll send you the key so you can go look at a property or whatever. So they're going to be monitoring me and scoring me. I'm going to be scored as a buyer. Am I someone who pays on time and whatever? And you're going to be scored as a seller. And then are we just not like pawns in this whole AI game?
Probably, but I think the end result is efficiency and connection, and matching. So if we consider that ultimately in a two-sided marketplace, supply is probably easier to solve than consumers, and then the ultimate goal is to enhance the consumer experience, because that's ultimately what you have that others can't get. So for me, I think if we take that view of how do I make it better for consumers to find what they're looking for in less clicks and less words, and that's the best outcome.
Okay. So I think the future is incredibly exciting.
Definitely.
We've got to be a little bit cautious, maybe a little concerned around, because as we saw at the beginning, what images we see we know are not real, or maybe not real.
Yep.
The emails that I'm receiving, I'm now finding myself questioning them before I click, the SMSs and so on. So we're in this world at the moment where we're transitioning from basically very little or no AI to one where there's going to be quite all-pervasive AI, and in that transition process, a lot of interesting stuff's going to happen.
Definitely.
Okay. So Joe, thanks very much for having a chat about that. Thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts about it.